Now, hey, Jamal, I want to pronounce your last name right because I don't want to get into a fight. You know what I mean? Where I know I'll lose. You know what I mean? So please tell me your last name.
CHARLO.
Jamal Charlo. You know what I mean? So please tell me your last name.
CHARLO.
Jamal Charlo. You know what I mean? So please tell me your last name.
CHARLO.
Jamal Charlo is on the.
All right. Trying this new microphone thing through the computer, see how better or worse it sounds. But people laughed at me a year ago because I told them my favorite announcer at the time was Timothy Bradley Jr. And you guys are going to start appreciating Andre Ward, who I can't stand, but I shoot straight on this channel, and Timothy Bradley Jr. You're going to like those guys because they're Bradley's not a company guy. Ward can go either way. But when I saw Andre Ward score the Vasily Lomachenko versus Teofimo Lopez a draw like I did, and I know Ward didn't care too much for Lomachenko because he was always in the pound for pound discussion, and Andre thought he was the guy. He meaning himself. Well, if a top-ranked fighter is getting his butt kicked, then he's getting his butt kicked. And Timothy Bradley Jr. doesn't care where his paycheck comes from. He calls it that way. He does it in a rough around the edges way, in a street way, but he's consistently letting you know he's not a company guy. So sometimes Al Bernstein, who is still one of the best out there, sometimes he'll allow others to kind of reel him in, and he'll change up some of the things he says. And I'm like, no, the way you got to the top, Al, was not being a company guy. And I thought he played a little bit of company guy tonight, and I thought Steve Farhood, who usually doesn't give a damn how he scores the fights, he's usually the voice of reason. But then when he pretty much said that CHARLO swept the final 4 rounds, I'm like, well, I'm not sure. Like, what happened? Because the way he was judging most of the fight, I thought, um, I thought Castaño at worst won the 9th round. Okay, but to say he got swept over the final 4, I'm not so sure. Nevertheless, body language, once again, if you look at Jermell, he was kind of hoping for the draw, and if that fight is anywhere other than Texas, then it's not a draw. Strange thing, for the most part, Steve Weisfeld out of New Jersey does a good job, and Tim Cheatham did their job. This Nelson Vasquez guy, I mean, 17-11. Come on, guy. And I mean, your last name is Vasquez too, and my man's last name is Castaño. So I'm thinking, if somebody's going to get him, somebody else is. But I heard something disturbing, and I'll have to watch the round again. But one of the judges scored 10-8 for Jamel in one of the rounds, where he may have been dominant, but not that dominant. But let me give you An insight on scoring. We score the fights wrong. We break our own rules as a as a country. As just this isn't a commission. You okay? What's his name? Tommy Morrison contracted HIV, more than likely because of needles, because of drug use. They allowed him to fight in West Virginia because we don't have a body that oversees all the commissions. So has each commission just kind of governs itself, with the best commission by far being the state of New Jersey. That's why you look, one thing Atlantic City has that everywhere but Vegas in the United States has is I'm sorry, that has that Vegas has and no one else, is plenty of hotels and casinos in one location. New Jersey also has instant replay, yet nobody's coming to New Jersey. You merely have to look at the Erislandy Lara versus Paul Williams fight to know why. It's not just because of instant replay, which Las Vegas uses when it wants to protect the house fighter, but forgets that it has when they know a ruling will go against the cash cow or the house fighter. Um, New Jersey has instant replay. It has the casinos, has the boardwalk, has the new outlets a block away from the boardwalk. But they have a commissioner, Larry Hazard, who's no nonsense, and he suspended those three judges in the Paul Williams Erislandy Lara fight. And guess what? You didn't hear from those judges for at least a year. Somebody messes something up now, give them give them a month or two off, and then they're back judging again. So Texas is one of the, I would say, top 5 most corrupt um, uh, athletic commissions as far as boxing is concerned. Okay, I'm not gonna mess with those Aggies and those Longhorns or anything like that, but um, they it was all about the Coles. Dickie Cole was the commissioner. Lawrence Cole. I mean, do I have to mention his name? Just look up some of his uh, controversies in the past. Um, it's also a state that let Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. skip out on post-fight drug tests, as well as other fighters. So it's it's a place to go to. It has uh, a base that a lot of people will go to. I thought when Manny Pacquiao drew as many fans as he did for the uh, Joshua Clottey fight, and Spence Jr. being from Texas, I thought that would have been a nice look at the Cowboys Stadium, AT&T, or the other one. What is it, Ford Field or whatever it's called? But that's going to Vegas. But anyway, and Dallas doesn't have the casino, so maybe that's kind of the thought process. Um, I thought Brian Castano won. Excuse me, I thought Brian Castano won. Um, Got to put that accent on the letter N. And Jermell Charlo thought Brian Castano won. Just look at his face. And it reminded me of Antonio Tarver, who I believe, me and Tarver are buddies too. I believe Tarver in the first Roy Jones Jr. fight knew he was going to get ripped off because he's jumping all on the belt and talking about yes and I told y'all and all. Like you could tell, and then he came up with this funny look on his face when they announced the fight for Jones. But I think he knew it was going to happen, so he was getting himself pumped up. Well, the same with the Charlo brothers. I mean, Jamal is like undisputed, baby, and I mean you did it, and it's like, come on, man. Y'all knew what it was. They knew what it was. So you telling me we get a draw in Texas because we Texas boys, right? And we got 14-14 on one card and 14-13 on the other card. And you the home dude and this is your promotion or whatever. Listen, I had a talk with, oh man, it must have been a 2-hour talk with a PBC premier trainer. I'm not gonna say his name, but because I didn't talk to him and ask him, but we were talking about how Jermell Charlo is just a guy. He's just a regular dude, man. I mean, who, hey, listen to my previous video. He was getting his ears boxed off by Austin Trout. He was getting his ears boxed off by John Jackson. He was getting his ears boxed off twice by Tony Superbad Harrison. So hear me out. Harrison is known to fade. So in the second fight, I wouldn't say he faded. He just got caught. I look at it as more of a he was fading a little bit, but more of a lapse. John Jackson was up, I think, 5 points on all three cards, if I'm not mistaken. I know at least one. Let's put it that way. And he was down on all three cards. Let's just say it that way. And it wasn't by a round. And then Austin Trout, every round Austin Trout didn't get knocked down in, he was winning. He was making both Charlo brothers look foolish. But but Jermell has just, when Jermell was with Golden Boy Promotions, Golden Boy put him in with a bunch of undefeated and one-loss fighters because they looked at him like he's just a guy. And so he got through those. But in the three fights that I mentioned, Harrison, the Fish, Trout, and Jackson, he got outboxed in the rounds they won. He just got fortunate enough to stop two of those guys. And he dropped Austin Trout twice and still only won a majority decision. So that should tell you something. The fight didn't go. I told it, listen to the prior video. I said if Castaño's up 4-2 or 3-3, or if it's 3-3 after 6 rounds, he's going to turn it up a notch and Jermell's going to be in trouble. Now, to Jermell's credit, he did win a couple of the late rounds. You can debate on how many. But I thought Castaño let him off the hook. There were a couple of times later in the rounds where he has his back on the ropes or he's near the ropes, and Castaño didn't get off as much as I thought. I thought he was going to seriously outwork this kid in the second half of the fight, and he just didn't. While he kept coming forward and backing him up, he didn't apply the pressure as hard and didn't give me the volume I thought. So in a way, if you know you're in Texas and this is how it's going down, then you're just as much to blame knowing how things go in Texas. And you just happen to be fighting a Texas guy. So see you in November in Brooklyn, or maybe see you back in Texas. I don't know. For him to come back to Texas, he's going to have to tell Alan Heyman, look, you guys gotta up the ante because, like, I mean, I'm fighting the dude, I'm fighting the crowd, I'm fighting the referee, I'm fighting the judges, I'm fighting the twin brother. I mean, but I think Showtime kind of set up what's going to happen. Because I don't think my man wants anything. He talking about, oh, I just want to go home with my kids, and this is boxing. I think his head is like not where it should be or where it could be. And I'm telling you, that goes in hand with maybe he doesn't want to see this guy again, at least not right away. But somebody, it might have been Bernstein, he was like, I just hope mandatories don't get in the way. Right? He said it. And then later on, either Brian Custer or the very irritating Mauro Ronaldo, one of the two said, and as you said, I just hope the mandatories don't get in the way. See, they're planning that in your head to let you know if one or both of these guys don't want the rematch, and I think there could only be one who wouldn't. Not saying that he doesn't. They're planting that seed to say, oh, he's going to have to fight as mandatory because they're saying we'll strip you. Nah, man. So, good fight. Once again, the kid isn't anything special. You can outbox. This is known. You can outbox Jermell. Um, he's been fortunate to find some pop late in fights. Well, I think it was the eighth round with Jackson, and what was it, the 10th or 11th with Harrison. So he's been fortunate to be able to do that. But you always asked if there was a guy who didn't fade like a Castaño, what would happen? Castaño kind of took his foot off the gas um, in the later rounds. I have to check that 10-8 round that one judge scored. I can't like that. I don't know if that was my Jersey guy, Weisfeld or Cheatham, but while I recall Jermell having a good round, 10-8. But going back to scoring, though, another thing Larry Hazard will tell you, we don't score fights correctly. We break our own rules. That's where I was going early. Like, you have different commissions that have different ways of handling things. Like, West Virginia would have probably been the only state that allowed Morrison to fight that time. He turns in some paperwork, and I don't know what happened. They let him fight. And it's like, yo, he's HIV positive. Like, what's going on here? So, because we don't have a governing body, then but separate from that, there are boxing rules. And there's the 10-point must system. So one time I did a card, I did some live scoring, and people emailed me and criticized me. And I'm like, no. It's a 10-point must system. So when the official judges scored, it might have been Anthony Joshua. It was a fight. It was when a couple of guys went down. So if fighter A knocks fighter B down, but he was losing a round, you can score it 9-8. Or if fighter A was winning and he knocks a fighter down, that's 10-8. If he knocks the fighter down again, that's 10-7. If he gets knocked down, it's 9-7. You understand? So the judges scored it in that example. They scored it 10-7. And I'm like, that, that's wrong. So the correct way to score fights on the regular when there's no knockdown is all fights should be scored 10-8. The winner gets 10, the loser gets 8. That's like if you read the rules of boxing, that's how it goes. So it's 10-8. Now, if somebody's dominating a round and then there's a flash knockdown, and then they give the round to the other guy. See, it's Well, anyway, you know what? I'm not gonna get into scoring. I did a video on that. If I find it, I'll paste it below, and I broke down exactly how, because I'm just talking off the top of my head right now. But anyway, um, I missed. Okay, I saw part of the um. Wait a minute. My sister's texting me. I'm thinking about. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I know this is unprofessional, but what do I have to lose? So going back to the Rolly Romero. He I don't know who he called out because I missed that part. So I don't know exactly what he was saying. But I know he's been talking a lot in in the um in the press, and someone he's been calling out is Gervonta Davis. Let me tell you something, man. Just like I tried to tell everybody, Mario Barrios, he got a gift in one of his fights leading up to Davis. And he fought some guy who wasn't really punching like that, and his eye was pretty much almost closed. I'm not sure if a headbutt had to do with that, but the point is he was getting hit. Um, Romero got a gift. It was either in his last fight or his next to last fight, and that was a robbery. Like you have gifts, like we predicted would happen tonight. I thought he would get more outwork than he did, so credit to him. And as I stated, he did what he needed to do. However, um, the fight that Rolly Romero won, uh, who was it? Was it the Jackson Marinez guy? I think that was a robbery. That wasn't a gift. You can call tonight a gift. Um, it was close. I just thought, and then the numbers were at a pace where he was going to get outworked, and then it kind of changed up. And I don't know when you talk about punch stats. What was it called in HBO? CompuBox. When you talk about punch stat and CompuBox, it's human error. So what you have is you have one guy that counts all the hits, one guy that counts all the misses, and I'm not sure if they use a third or fourth guy to show how many punches each guy threw, because it's hard to imagine two dudes just counting the hits and the misses, and then the power punches and so on and so forth. So, but human error. So that's like saying, hey, my man, we're gonna hire you to do this tonight. He's gonna see what he sees. He's not gonna see what he doesn't see. Um, so I never give too much to that. That Chocolatito versus Rungby side, that first fight, that was ridiculous though. There's no way with those numbers you lose a fight. It's like it's impossible. Yet they gave it to Rungby side. But those numbers, by the numbers, oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. So I don't know. I think they got it wrong tonight. Well, first of all, Romero's not going to beat Davis if they fought. He's too wide with his punches and he's too slow with them. He's got pop, but that wouldn't go for more than 4 rounds. Um, they were club fighters. So, but I thought they got the main event wrong. I thought, what can you say? All you can say is remember where the fight was, who the everybody gets caught up in this A side crap, but who the guy was, and here's what happened. So we'll see. That 17-11 though, I mean, come on, Vasquez. So now that makes me look. I got to look at Vasquez's history as a judge and see if we put him on our judges list, which Adelaide Bird and a few other names, and of course our guy Don Trella coming to your area causing mass hysteria. Don Trella, who scored Golovkin Alvarez won a draw, but it was so overshadowed by um, Adelaide Bird that nobody went back to Trella and said, where'd your 114 come from? Anyway, Don is my guy. I actually met him and we had a nice talk. I was going to interview him, but and he was going to let me do it, but something came up. So if I go to Vegas, I'm thinking about going to Vegas September 18th for what I believe will be Saul Alvarez versus Caleb Plant or someone else. But I'm 90% sure a big fight will happen September 18th in Las Vegas. Listen to my 2 videos about Saul Alvarez versus Oscar De La Hoya, and the second one, the most recent one, and you'll see why I think something big is going to happen that weekend. So that's pretty much it. I was flipping and watching some of the NBA finals where it looks like Phoenix just wants to speaking of gifts, wants to gift wrap it for Milwaukee. I won't be surprised if they go back to Milwaukee and Phoenix wins. I will not be surprised because Phoenix, they've kind of done things the hard way. Um, they've done things the hard way uh, during these playoffs, only to go back and win the game they should have won at home. It's like, man, you're making an extra trip. So we'll see. We'll see. But anyway, let me know what you guys think. I just think we said it. We said it. If this is what we said if the fight is 4-2 or 3-3 after 6, Romero was going to turn it up. He was going to outwork Charlo, and then Charlo was going to get a gift decision on the cards. I thought they were going to give it to him because the way you announce split decisions um, is you give one score for fighter A, the other score for fighter B, and then the third score for fighter B. Because your mind, your subconscious says, okay, I said one name here, the other name here, so I'm going back like a seesaw. The third name here, and that's where you subconsciously you be like, oh, you get a shot. This was a split draw though, and not a majority draw, and not a split decision win for someone else, but a split draw. So couldn't do it. But good fight. It's not the greatest fight in the world, like I see some people saying on Facebook. One thing of note: when Showtime went to the Twitter and asked who they thought won, I think like 70 something percent said Castaño. And these aren't Castaño fans. These are PBC fans who always want to chime in and say, hey, man. So they they went against the premier fighter, so to speak. Like, and if they're both premier fighters, then the house fighter. Come on. The guy who, so when you say, in other words, when you say this fight is by whoever it was, TGB Boxing, along with Lions Only. So now they're part of the promotion. So it's like, well, like everything should go our way. And it didn't. And when the fans chimed in and they said almost 80% for Castaño, then you know what time it is. Come on. Those aren't Castaño fans getting on Twitter and casting their votes. So Anyway, next week was supposed to be Fury and Wilder, and as of earlier in the week, they were still going to have the undercard, but they changed it. So I don't know if that was going to compete with anything, um, like anything of note. There are fights everywhere, but I don't know if that was going to compete with anything good. So that's what's that? The 24th. The 24th is Joe Joyce versus Carlos Takam, and then the following week, excuse me, July 31st. Where's my summer going? July 31st is Conor Benn versus Adrian Granados. I may be in New Jersey once again to see the Michael Coffey versus Gerald Washington card, and then to see the rematch. Um, a hot prospect who has a big following, but he got upset. Um, so it's Vito Milniecki, excuse me, Jr. and fighting James Martin, who upset him, and also Joey Spencer and Dan Carpensy or Carpensy on the card also. So that's going to be on Fox. I think I'm gonna drive up to that and check that out. Not the biggest card, but hey, something to do because I'm leaning toward getting out of the game. So this will help me kind of get back into the game a little bit. So anyway, all right, guys, catch you in the next one.